Hi guys, welcome. I'll let you all settle down before I start speaking. I'm also a very fast speaker. My girlfriend calls me Buster Rhymes, so if I'm speaking very quick, just give me a nod. So I'm not very good at public speaking, one of my first ones. So if I speak fast, I'll try to slow down. So I'm here to talk about actually how interaction design improved the experience of a very boring utility app that I made. Uh, I made a very simple app, like a water tracker app, and I went into a big problem to how to make it more engaging for other users and how to stand out from the crowd. It is something already people don't actually want to get into it too much. How do I get people to come and use it, and how do I make them stay, and how they stay on the retention rate, engagement rate to increase it? So as we all know, there's apps, and apps for everything these days. How many apps do you guys use on a day-to-day basis? How many apps do you use? How many do you use? Five. You're a good one. It's less, yeah. How many apps do you use? Three, five. You guys are using less apps. Well, a lot of people use two-digit number of apps every day. And because there's so many apps for everything, there can be a fatigue of using the technology. And it's harder to stand out from the crowd when you're using so many apps and harder to get a better experience. Why do we use apps? Because we're trying to solve a problem. For example, if you're hungry, you're going to use Uber Eats or you're going to use DoorDash to use the app to order your food. But there are so many other apps out there. Why do you choose certain apps over the other? Any answers? Other answers? Usability, yeah. Reliability and design, yeah. Cognitive load, yeah. Sorry? Word of mouth, that's a big one, yeah. To solve, that was the first initial. Yeah. So all of this includes your experience with the app. Experience matters, how you're using the app. Some people would also say that price point is also a part of the experience, but it's a big umbrella. The experience of the app, the whole journey is a big umbrella of the app. So what are the different types of products that we use everyday life? So if for someone, these are the vertical products and these are horizontal products. In the needs hierarchy, the vertical products are the one which are for someone very important in the need requirement and they want it sort of immediate or those apps are really crucial to them. For example, if you want to get somewhere, Uber is a high priority on a vertical scale. You need it more than anything else at that point. If you're into fitness, for someone into fitness, that needs for these, if for example, this is into fitness, their needs for fitness app would be much higher. And then there are horizontal apps which are low on need priority, but can be implemented across a wider audience. For example, a lower audience, everybody here would maybe use can use a water tracker to track their hydration, but they will not because it is very low on the need hierarchy. It's a product that is a very low hierarchy, which is applicable to everyone, but not everybody is going to use it. So if you're working with a product, if you have a job working with a product which is a horizontal product, which is a low scale need priority, where you cannot solve many problems, how do you enhance the design? How do you enhance the engagement of your users? This talk is almost pretty much about increasing the engagement for your horizontal products. If we talk about horizontal products, what other things can you do to elevate the experience? If you have a horizontal product, what other things can you do to elevate the experience? Anybody in the room? Reward system, yeah. Gamification, yeah, that's massive. Anyone else? Make it personal. Education, yeah. Any other takers? I think everyone gets the idea to how to make it more engaging. If we talk about these, another idea you can get from the biggest horizontal app that scale, that would be Duolingo. Duolingo was a horizontal app which was applicable to a lot of people. For some, it was a vertical app. It was a higher on need, but it was something that everybody wanted to use. A lot of people wanted to learn a language, and they wanted to get ahead and implement and learn something. And there were like hundreds of apps out there, 378 or whatever. I'm just making up that number, but there were so many apps out there, and nobody was using them because the experience on those apps was not as per you would imagine, or nobody would have imagined that a language app would give you that good experience. So what did Duolingo do better? Have you heard of Duolingo? What do you think set it apart from other competitors? Sorry? layout, yeah, the interaction, the information, yeah.
Your initial onboarding bypasses all the sign up, so you just go straight into actually learning.
Yeah, streamline onboarding, streamline experience. Anything else? Personalization, yeah. And when you do personalization, what do you mean by personalization in the app? Yeah. Yeah. Set your custom goal, track how you're going. Yeah. Anybody else wants to add anything to it? Sorry? Gamification. Yeah, gamification's massive. There's actually a lot of numbers related to all of this. So apps with good interaction design get 30% higher retention rates. Gamification leads to 47% higher engagement rate in any app. If your app has good implementation of gamification, you'll get 47% higher engagement rate and 43% higher conversion in apps that offer the personalized experience, as a personalized onboarding, personalized goal, and that will elevate your experience for your app. So even if you're doing a horizontal app, your experience for that app would be a lot better. I want to do sort of like a workshop here, just to pick everyone's brain. If you had a horizontal app, what features would you add onto the horizontal app? What interactions would you add to the horizontal app? Suppose take a water tracker, for example. What would you add in that app? Yeah. How would you make it more engaging? How would you make it more fun? Like, yeah.
Like analogies, like this many bathtubs or
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good one. I can think of. What other things? Yeah. Oh, yeah, something you can feel relate to. Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, yeah. Oh, yeah. So you have a personal touch with the app. Yeah. That actually gets used in a lot of apps. And Tamagotchi is a very niche requirement for a lot of users like that style. And anyone else? Set reminders. Yeah. And anyone else? Any ideas to how to make it engaging? Yeah. Competitions. Yeah, that's good gamification you can add onto the app to compete with each other. Adds a social element to the app. Anyone else? A drinking game. Every time you get a notification, you have a beer. Yeah, 10 shots of water, 300. That's a good idea. I'll think about it. Anyone else? Any other ideas here? We're exploring ideas. If you have a horizontal product, we are all designers who are hired to make a horizontal utility app much fun. What else can we do? Yeah. 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 Makes sense. Yeah. So to do all that, when you make all the engagement and design whatever you want to design, the problem that we get is for us designers to make something in Figma and doing auto animate is much easier, and we can give to our developers and we can just make something really nice. Like you can make like a moon come from here to there on a button and auto animate it, but the actual developer programmer would be sweating and they would be hating you for it. And it's a small interaction. When you go on the higher interactions, such as Duolingo, making your whole avatar, personalizing them, making a lot of badges, making more interactions of Tamagotchi style or avatar style, if you rely on the developers to make that, if you're on a smaller company or your startup scale, then development costs will shoot very high. You might not get exactly what you want, and your developer relationships will go very bad, sour. So for that, there's some tools that I use that has options to actually, you can design everything in your workflow and hand off to the developers. So for example, I'll show you what I've done for my apps. So This is sort of like a onboarding for the app if it plays. So it's a Tamagotchi style kind of thing. You open it, there's different animation interactions in it, and then you can set your whole look. There's a human, there's a fish, there's a cat, and there's a robo. You can choose whatever you want to choose. And it's on the onboarding, it doesn't ask you much as a simplified onboarding. It makes you engage with the app. You are a person in the app that you make, whatever you want to make, and then you start that journey. To do this, if I had to do it with a developer, I had to decide all the parameters with the developer, give him all the images, and I have to really hope that he could pull out a magic wand to develop something like this in the whole development phase. But to do this on a tool like Rive and Spline that I'm talking about today, it was months of work for me, but I could deliver it, and the developers just had to plug in the code, the file that I'm making it, and they can implement it. And this adds a huge leap in the improvement of the initial interaction with the user, even if somebody is a fan of Tamagotchi or not, but it includes the personalization touch to it, and it includes how you want your design to come across. Some of the times we make our designs and they don't come across exactly, and developers don't translate it exactly. If you're making your own animations, you have more control on how you are getting your design signed off. For example, you can also make boring tasks fun. So on the left, I have an example of another app which is using interaction design, but it's using a minimal interaction design and adding your water into the log. To make it more personalized, we added a bit more like a more personality to the app. How Duolingo had its own personality with the owl, and the owl gets sad and angry, and if you're reaching your streaks, it has a personality. We added a personality to our app. So when you're having a drink, your character will respond to however you drink. If you drink water, it'll respond with the water. If you drink alcohol, it'll respond tipsy. If you drink coffee, it's gonna go fighting and boxing. But all this is a small inch increment to the personality that the app is having. So when you're using the product, you will have a more connection to this product. For example, also you can influence motivation. You can communicate a lot with interaction design, and it can leave a deeper impact. For example, if you just write a text that you are dehydrated, as demonstrated earlier, you are less likely to go ahead and just hydrate yourself. But if you are liable for something else, like a pet or an avatar, which is looking dehydrated, which is going to look sad, which is going to be really dying on your screen, you are tinge bit more likely to go back to the app and then give it more input. So it influences and gives more motivation to the users. Also, you can add really small delights to the app. It doesn't have to be huge major things. For the sharing aspect, for challenging with your friends, if you add the sharing aspect, you have the competition going, but then you have to make it delightful. So small confettis you can add those elements, and they can be shared with your social media. So if you are working for a horizontal product, if you can make the sharing experience fun for the users, you will get more user retention. You will acquire new users, and it will help you get a better base and more feedback in the even early stages. Even something smaller like notifications, you can see if you clear a notification, there's just a really sad guy with that notification, but it's just small personality adds to the app. So if this app is competing with another app, there's more people likely to stay with a personality than something that doesn't have a personality. What I used for this was basically Rive. Rive was the tool which is for 2D animation, and Spline is for 3D animation. Spline is a bit harder on smaller phones. So if you're thinking about accessibility, Rive should be the one that you should start with. And Rive has a much easier learning curve, and Spline has a much bigger learning curve. If you ever used After Effects, Rive, you'll feel right at home with Rive. You open the Rive, it has a similar concept like timeline, and you'll be easily able to design your interaction and export it. It gives you state machines which you can give to your developers, and it gives you triggers, and your developers just have to set those triggers, and your animations will play exactly as it is. And your animations are in the size of KBs, so you don't have to worry about smaller phones not being able to play it. You can also test it on your own devices because you can directly plug in Rive to your development cycle. Concepts to learn if you're learning these tools would be state machine, event triggers, and animation timelines. If anybody has used After Effects, animation timeline is something that you would have used. State machine is something that is useful more for developers, but you would need to know how to set up. So after an event, for example, you decided that interaction of drinking the water. What does it do after drinking that water? It acts like that. So you know that trigger. You tell your developers that at this action, you do this trigger for my animation. If you have, for example, at this action, you have to trigger a confetti. Then you tell them that for this action, I have a trigger set to confetti. And they just have to put that file in there and then just set the confetti. Event triggers is something mostly used in 3D Drive, 3D Spline. And the event trigger is something similar to the state machine. But when you get to using it, you will understand that there are very similar overlapping. If you learn one tool, a lot of them get translated to the other tool. So if anybody is looking to start interaction design, I would recommend starting with Rive. And Rive is a big community, a lot of open community files are there. You can go ahead and play with it. If you are not able to make your own, you can go. I'm not affiliated by Rive, by the way. It has just been really good for my product. So I'm speaking about interaction design. You can go on to Rive, and like Lottie files, you can use any of those files and you can fork it. So if you like an interaction animation, you can fork it, put your own colors, you put your own branding, and they're open CC4 license, so you can use them as well. What to avoid? I would say don't force. If you have that many options to animate and you have sky's the limit options and you developers have a free hand that, okay, you tell us wherever we put it, they're happy to put it everywhere, then you might also go into the pitfall of making everything boom, 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 boom. Something's coming from here, something's coming from there. So that's something you should avoid, over animating everything. Don't do it too much. And then don't force users for an action. Don't force your animation over an action. So if a user has to make an action, let the user make those actions. Don't let the animation interrupt the flow. Keep it flowing and think of accessibility, because if a lot of times you have to test these tools because they have a way that they make a canvas on your screen, and sometimes things are not accessible, touchable. Touch points are not working. So when you're also doing testing, you have to keep all those testing in mind, along with smaller phones in mind, along with different size of phones in mind, because when you're making your animations, you're making an artboard, and the animations can go big and small. So you have to test all the pixelations and everything. Any questions? Anyone? Anything you would like to discuss?
Can I ask you, so in terms of your workflow, do you say start Figma, then look at Spline or Vibe? Like, how does that work?
Yeah. So I start with Figma, and after Figma, I would make a rough concept in Figma and see, like Figma auto animate is pretty good to get like a rough idea how I want it to come across. And if I like how, if it's adding to value to my workflow or the app or the animation, then I will go and work it in Rive, because Rive does take a bit of time, because it can also use PNG images, but it is always recommended to use SVG vector, because when because you want your animation to be able to scale. So if you want to use it on a big TV, you want to play it on anywhere, if you use SVG, you'll be able to, a 4 KB file, you'll be able to play on a big theater. But if you use PNG, you will not be able to scale it, and PNG has a lot more problems. So to create your everything in PNG, SVG will take time in Rive. So I would build everything in Figma, test it, and then the proper animation, I go into Rive. And some animations you can't do on Figma, so I would do those in Rive itself. Yeah. Anyone else? Any questions? Yeah.
So you have like the differences that of engagement and attention and all those from before and after adding all the
So this is not, the other app was the old comparative app. This is a new app that I have made. So there's no comparative stats for me. The stats that I was showing before were stats from Duolingo and other research before. My personal apps stats, because I initially designed with this, I would have to compare when I change my interactions. So as I'm iterating and I'm learning and getting more feedback and I'm changing, then I would have those stats that, okay, from A point, I had this much engagement, and from B point, I have this much engagement. The next thing I'm trying is, like, it's Halloween night, so I'm adding like Halloween pumpkin mask and other characters and doing different things. So trying different things to iterate and try. And I'm in that phase. So it's going to take like good 4 to 5 months to get actual data to understand what has actually worked and what has actually not worked. So far, it's positive reviews. Anyone else? Yeah. 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 That is depending on the team and organization you're working with. But you don't need too much time to design a prototype with Drive and these kind of tools. Actually, it's if you learn it, maybe in a night or a day you can have a rough estimation of what you want to make. Even it can be very low poly. You can have a very low poly idea, and then you can show it to them, and then your team, you can sit down and with them and decide that does it add value to the users, does it add any improvement to the current user experience. You don't have to spend 2 weeks. Like I spent months on it because it was decided that we're going with Tamagotchi style and needed more characters. But if you're just validating the idea, you can validate it fairly quickly. And then when your team and everybody decided with that idea, then you can go hi-fi. You can also like start with just PNGs. So Rive and Spline, they all give you PNG. So if you have an image and if you want to simulate an animation, you can just use that image and simulate the animation, put it on your phones and simulators, and then you can decide in your team meetings. Anyone else? Yeah.
What's your process for getting development in a loop?
Yeah.
At what point do you engage? What methods do you use to?
So for animation specifically, I would engage developers just towards the end when my state machine is set up, because you have all the control when you're setting up the state machine. You know what trigger you are putting. You know there's what true and false situations there has to be, and you know the problems in conflicting timelines if there's any problems arising. So when I'm happy with my state machine setup, then I would engage developers. I would do a whole documentation sort of thing that this state machine has these many triggers. This trigger expected behavior is this. You have the screenshot next to the expected behavior. You have the animation next to the. You can also export GIF from Rive. So that's sometimes like if you have a bigger project, you can export GIF, and you can set up the whole documentation for them that this trigger should put this animation out, and they have a preview of the animation. So I would do it just towards the end because you have to test your whole state machine. Developer has very less to do it after that. If you tell them the right things and the right triggers and input, then developer has nothing to do. They can just plug and play. There's very less error for them. Yeah.
Talked about Duolingo a lot as a comparison to this.
Yeah.
I guess like a goal to sort of reach
Yeah.
where you're at. I feel like there's a slight difference with this migration app because what the user's responsible for going, oh, like this is we got 7 5 mils of Coca-Cola that you know there's a lot more in real life kind of input that you can give it.
Yeah.
Is there any examples of apps like that you've aimed to sort of do research on?
So before doing this, we did research on the biggest competitors, which are Water Llama and Plant Nanny. So Plant Nanny is a similar app which has a Tamagotchi style. It has a plant, and then you feed the plant, and the plant grows. And there was Water Llama, which is similar interactions, but it's just a llama on the screen, and it brightens up when you have all the water. So as per the current industry leaders, I've tried to incorporate the best what they both do and put it into the thing. But I've learned while doing the testing and getting users and other feedback that everybody would not know how much my glass ml is. Like, and this example, you know how many this ml is, but if you have a glass you just pick up here, they would not know it. So there's a need for adding like a smart capture, like an image almost, to understand like how much of water you are drinking, to make it even less of like a friction for users to add to it. So these are the small things that I'm learning to improve. But apart from the leaders in this industry, we have tried to pretty much cover both the things that they are doing. Right now, we are optimizing the performance of the app because on the smaller apps, sometimes on low battery, you still can get problems onto it. So we're working on optimizing the performance. Anyone else?
Yeah, I'm just interested in your character development. How do you do that? Do you like your character development set up Figma, or you use character animator and it does rigging and stuff like that? As or does Rive allow you to do rigging and
Yeah.
Spline as well?
Yeah, they both allow you to rigging. They both allow you to make bones and constraints. So they have a very good system to, and they also have like all the blending tools in it. So they have a very good system to do all that. I will still do my character development in Figma, like to this, because it's faster for me to do it in Figma and put it on my phone and see all the different layers. So I will put it in Figma, group the faces behind layers and bodies behind layers, and then see which combinations work. And when they are all working, I would export them to SVG, and then I would put them in Rive. You can make like a bone structure in Rive, and then Rive has this option to make a solo. So you can make a group almost, and you can make one thing active, the next thing active, the next thing active. So on the head, you can put something and you can replace many heads. On the hand, you can put something and you can replace many hand variations, finger variations. So it gives you a lot of room to test your character. You can make a single animation, but on the same animation, if you use your bones and rig correctly, you can test a lot of characters. Yeah. Awesome. Anyone else? Yeah.
Does Rive do sound?
Yeah, they just started a sound.
Have you looked to incorporate sound into these interactions?
Yeah, but what I found was nobody has their sounds on most of the time. It is something I would do when I have more time to use, but not many people have sound. It is a good addition, value addition for people who are using sound. So I will look into it, not at this moment because my resources are very strapped to, yeah, not many people, but it does have a sound. It has a sound library as well. I sound like a Rive seller. I'm not affiliated by Rive. They're just good and it helped me. I'm an independent developer, so they just really helped me. And I just wanted to share something with everyone here that you guys can use. Anybody else?
I have to wrap it up this day. We've got a 4 o'clock.
Oh yeah, sorry. Oh, if you want to try the app yourself, please go ahead. There's a QR code. It's only on iOS right now. You can give me all the good feedback on App Store and all the criticism on my LinkedIn if you want. Yeah, awesome.